New Edition. What has it been said about one of the most gifted and prolific groups that has ever graced the stage and studio?
That's why he's the GOAT!
Known for their style and precision, they blessed the world with over 40 years of excellence. But what we as fans have seen on stage is a stark contrast to the turmoil off of it. New Edition carried the torch of the Jackson 5, which was passed down from the Temptations. New Edition inspired legendary acts such as Boyz II Men, New Kids on the Block, and NSYNC, as well as successful ensembles like High Five, Soul for Real, Immature, and lesser known acts like 4x4. Besides their success as a group, every act that spawned from New Edition found massive success that can only be rivaled by the likes of the Genesis, Fleetwood Mac, and the Beatles.
Damn.
And I don't think people really grasp the gravity of how tall of a feat that really is. Really wrap your head around this. New Edition, which was mostly known for R&B and bubblegum pop in their earlier years, accomplished a feat that only some of the biggest rock bands of all time accomplished. So following the success of Bobby Brown, BBD, Ralph Tresvant, and Johnny Gill, it was only natural for the world to want to see what they could all do together in their more matured state. In this video, I will explore the on and off stage turmoil that transpired during New Edition's Home Again era, an era that felt more like hell than home. Now the year is 1989. The controversial Bobby Brown is a mega superstar and hasn't been a part of the group for a few years. But even with his personal success, he was always tied to New Edition. And now, with the new addition of Johnny Gill, New Edition set out to transition into a more mature sound. And with the help of the legendary duo Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, that's exactly what they did with Any Heartbreak.
Song, a lot of times we'll draw the line.
But they can never duplicate.
Nope, you gotta on imitate and perpetrate. You need to put a big T on, like imitate.
Okay, big T.
And on that and perpetrate.
Create, imitate and perpetrate.
Imitate, yeah, right. That's it.
Imitate.
Yeah, imitate.
The other people imitate and try their best to recreate where it all started from. So they only perpetrate, but they can never duplicate where it all started from.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm out.
You're out.
Once the Any Heartbreak tour concluded, questions were rising. What's next? Well, BBD happened next. Their first album, Poison, was received very well due to its eclectic fusion of dance, hip-hop, and R&B. I personally like to describe it as dirty pop. Belle Biv DeVoe successfully broke from the New Edition mold by crafting an aesthetic and a vibe of their own. They often wore street clothes and athletic wear, inspired the likes of TLC, once again Immature, and Another Bad Creation. Belle Biv DeVoe was wild, unapologetic, and fiercely cool, ushered in a new wave of street R&B. Then a month later, Johnny Gill would say, "Hold my Bible, fellas," and gave the world his breakout album, aptly named Johnny Gill, which cemented his status as grown and sexy with hits like My, Rub You the Right Way, and deep cut Lady du Jour, which is my favorite off the album. Johnny's record was received highly by critics and fans and hit the charts like lightning. It peaked at number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on Billboard's R&B charts. Last but not least, Ralph Tresvant dropped his self-titled album in November of the same year. Ralph's resentment was well documented in the biopic regarding his solo ventures. After declining the option to go solo in the beginning and shelving his first album for the fate of the group, and with the monster success of Bobby, Johnny, and BBD, the question was, how would Ralph follow up and compare? Ralph not only had the pressure of being the lead singer of the group to go solo and be successful, but he was also the last to go solo. And as he expressed in the past, his original idea of a high energy album with street edge and R&B softness was taken, or for a lighter word, given to Bobby Brown. In his words, even down to the style and the 2 backup dancers in which Bobby Brown used for Heart and Soul, that was also Ralph's vision for his first album, but unfortunately it got shelved. So unfortunately, he couldn't rehash that same New Jack Swing vibe Bobby Brown had, or that grown and sexy mature vibe of Johnny Gill, he definitely couldn't pick up where BBD left off either. So he was left to pick from very few lanes. So he did what he could do, and that was curate a soft, gentleman type aesthetic matched with an album full of lush R&B arrangements and laced it with some high energy New Jack Swing inspired tracks. Here is a direct quote from editor Alex Henderson. Tresvant's self-titled R&B/pop release isn't as distinguished or as confident as the music Belle Biv DeVoe, Bobby Brown, and Johnny Gill had been doing on their own. But it has its moments. Some of the urban contemporary hottest producers, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and Wolf and Epic, among others, are employed, and yet the overall results aren't as strong as one might expect. None of the material is really bad, it's just that most of it isn't far from above average. Now I find that pretty harsh because I love the album personally. Even Ian Cranner from Q Magazine said that the album is a rather uneasy amalgam of dance grooves, strings, hip-hop, and lush ballads. I feel like Ralph's biggest crime was just dropping his album last. Unfortunately, it was going to be compared to everything else that his bandmates released. But the one thing that his album had that no other album from his bandmates had, a song written by Michael Jackson, All Right Now, which was one of my favorite tracks from the album. And this says a lot because Michael didn't give his songs just to anybody. So just know that Ralph wasn't no slouch.
I had the most pressure because it was behind all the success that I'm watching these guys have. They done blew up. Every 5 minutes is all you hear is tack, tack, that, tack, that, bam. Right. Beautiful. I'm like, oh. In my neighborhood, every day I'm hearing one of their records coming from a pool party. It's my prerogative. I'm like, they're playing that?
Right.
What in the hell am I going to do? I do not want to be the only one come out with something and it fails at this point.
Wow.
Because I never thought that I would be doing songs like Sensitivity, man. I was into the funk, and I was into the type of album Bobby put out. You know what I'm saying? I was going to hit the block with, you know, being that dude.
During this span of solo efforts, all the band members continued to collaborate and even did cameos in each other's music videos. And yes, including Bobby Brown, who also shared the stage with Ralph Tresvant during a Arsenio Hall performance. So there was a lot of love still there between them, and including an official first-time reunion at the 1990 VMAs when all 6 members performed on stage. So naturally, everyone was wondering, what is next with the group?
Baby and the Baby Faces and the Michael Jackson markets with my stuff, and Ricky and Bobby did his thing. You know, he got his whole little Bobby, Rick James slamming type of funk. And we trying to show Bob, you know, that was your boy.
All right, so you all are trying to show everybody that there's more to each of you individually.
Right, and we couldn't do that. We could have done it. We've always been into what we're getting ready to do solely, but we can't do it with New Edition because New Edition stands for one thing. So to break off, hit that, and you'll see what we mean when we do the next New Edition album, because it won't sound like Bobby's or mine or theirs. It'll sound like a...
When is that going to come out? Real quick, because we got to go to...
New Edition album, we'll start recording that
within a couple of months.
And we'll keep it on hold till everybody's stuff does what it does.
That few months that Ralph referred to turned into several years. In 1992, Bobby Brown followed up Don't Be Cruel with a strong effort in Bobby. Personally, I think some of his greatest vocal performances are on this album. He took the reins as a producer and songwriter as well. Unfortunately, when you have a massive album like Don't Be Cruel, fans and critics will cast anything afterwards in his shadow. So the album was given a mixed bag of reviews. Outside of the music, Bobby's personal life was on a downward spiral, and it was a spectacle within itself. Then in 1993, Johnny Gill hit the scene again with his album Provocative. Although it was very successful, the success was a stark drop-off compared to his previous album, with Provocative only reaching gold status. And in the same month, BBD dropped their sophomore album, Hootie Mac, an album that kinda came and went. It did spawn my favorite BBD track in Something in Your Eyes, but this album was a huge flop due to its musical direction. They leaned heavily on the rap element, and honestly, we all know, with all due respect, Mike and Ronnie aren't the strongest MCs. Trying to hear a whole album of them rapping, and in my humble opinion, this album was pretty bad.
It's a no for me, dog.
In 1994, Ralph's follow-up album, It's Going Down, was Drug Through Hell. All music editor Tim Griggs said Tresvant destroyed whatever promise he showed on his self-titled debut release. Fans and critics found the material to be jarring since he ditched the soft Loverboy wave and dove into a raunchy sexual persona, which could have worked if most of the material didn't fall flat. Outside of the few tracks produced by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the songs were mostly written by Ralph himself, which was deemed as a great mistake. Now let's go to 1996, where Bobby and Ricky are battling their personal addictions privately or publicly, and other members are dealing with financial issues due to their failed follow-up albums and mismanaged finances. The group finally said, "Here damn," and announced the reunion Home Again album. Fans and media were excited to see all 6 members in the studio for the first time on one album. For sure, this was set out to make history, but unfortunately, this album only sounded good in theory. The boys went to work in 1996, gathered up powerhouse producers Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the Diddles, Jermaine Dupri, and Gerald Levert. The outcome was a strong compilation of songs that showcased each member's strengths. My favorite songs are One More Day, Something About You, I'm Still in Love with You, and Shop Around. What are your favorites? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, even the recording sessions weren't a walk in the park. The tensions were thicker than Buffy the Body back in 2004. Things were different. They were different. They were no longer the group of young men who were trying to prove themselves. They were all very successful solo acts, superstars with egos to match.
Who was the most argumentative?
Oh, Lord. Not necessarily difficult in a bad way, but when we were doing the Home Again album with New Edition, Bobby Brown.
The legendary.
The legendary. So Bobby was great. I mean, at the end of the day, Bobby was wonderful. But it was so funny. So one day he was coming in and he was like ready to sing his part. Or as he would say, part. Ready to do my part. Ready to do my part.
Fuck you, Jam.
Right. So, totally. Our studio up in Minneapolis, we had 5 rooms. And so there was stuff going on in all the rooms, right? I was working with Ralph in one of the rooms. And I remember he came in a couple of times. Bobby said, "You ready for my part? You ready for my part?" And I said, "Just let me finish Ralph. Let me finish Ralph." So anyway, Ralph was done. And I said, "Okay, cool. I'll get Bobby in here." And then I think Mid Condition was in the other studio. Mm-hmm. So we went around to hear Mid Condition, whatever they were working on, which was all of 3 or 4 minutes, right? They just played us the song. And I walked out the studio and I see Bobby Brown walking out where I was working. Fuck Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. And walks out the door.
Make matters worse, to get all the members in the studio at the same time was damn near harder than trying to catch a chicken. And trying to distribute lead vocals and solo raps amongst all 6 members was not easy at all. Recording sessions would often lead to stormouts, big arguments over who gets what verse, who gets to sing the bridge, who gets what rap. It was an entire mess for every producer, and they felt like they were working with teenagers instead of established veteran R&B singers. To top it all off, with 6 different egos comes 6 different schedules, which none of them really aligned at all. They were practically treating the Home Again sessions as a side job. Like, you have Bobby Brown got to do this appearance this day, Ralph Tresvant got to do a performance this day, Michael Bivins got to run his whole record label in 5 different acts at this time, including BBD as well, who also had friction within their own structure because the other members felt like Michael Bivins did not make the group a priority. Despite the egos and arguments, the group generally felt really good about the material, even though Ralph felt slighted about his limited role, and Johnny believed the album was a big drop-off creative.
How do you feel about this album?
It's funny because from an artistic standpoint, I don't know if this was one of my favorite albums. It was.
I liked Heartbreak better.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It just, and that's the thing. That's why I said you can't, when you're in a different time, place, and space, you can never recapture that level capture that magic, whatever that is.
And on top of all of this, the finances were in the shitter. As explained by Stro in the biopic, this album took a huge toll financially, between paying the bill for the biggest producers of that era. But each member was adamant about having their personal lawyers, management, travel, dancers, and band. Funny enough, these old heads know better now and have the same exact dancers and band from every set. I've seen it in person. They don't switch that band or the dancers at all. With all of that to the side, the group released the first single, Hit Me Off, followed by the strong ballad, I'm Still in Love with You, and You Don't Have to Worry, and Something About You. The album quickly became a huge commercial hit, going #1 on the Billboard. With that being said, this album felt like a huge slam dunk despite all the troubles before the release. Sadly, that parade got rained on very quickly when it came to the press run and rehearsing for the tour. Now, first and foremost, there were 0 rehearsals for this tour, meaning the very first time all 6 members got together and performed their material was the very first show in mass. And to add more salt to the wound, the group had to play Where's Bobby every other night, as he was often a no-show for photo shoots, interviews, and radio broadcasts. Honestly, Bobby was really toxic, but we all know he was going through his shit. More Bobby shenanigans. Bob was often a dickhead who would miss shows, and then if he showed up, he would show up extremely late. And when he would perform over the time, so much so that it would go over the venue's curfew and over the other bandmates' time. So they would have to adjust the schedule based on Bobby Brown being super late and performing well over curfew. That's so terrible, man. But it wasn't just Bobby who had his issues. Ronnie also missed a couple of shows due to legal reasons. Ricky Bell even missed a couple of shows due to illness, quote unquote, which led to Bobby Brown actually filling in for him during the BBD set. This tour was practically being held by 2 wads of gum and a rubber band, because once that all snapped, all hell broke loose. The show officially went off the rails in New Mexico, as we saw in the biopic. Do I really have to explain what happened again? It was tragic. So the aftermath. Although Stroh really had his heart attack in Los Angeles, and you know they had to condense those events for dramatic effect, but it still happened nonetheless. And then the final nail in this coffin was the album's final single, One More Day, led by Ricky Bell. Then there's the music video, which only featured him and a love interest. You ever wondered why? Because up until this point, the members hated each other's guts. They protested this video shoot. None of them showed up. And since Ricky said himself via an Instagram post that he loved the song so much, and it's the only song that he solely sang lead on, he decided to show up. Why wouldn't he? Of course, get your time to shine, bro. We love you, Ricky. But yeah, they all hated each other so much that they could not stand to be on a video set, which was mandated anyways and paid for, but they said fuck it. And there you have it. The Home Again album and tour that should have never happened in the first place. Although we're happy as fans that it happened. And honestly, the group was able to grow from it years after the fact. So there's a lot of positives to be said regarding this album. But overall, it was a huge debacle that probably should not have happened at that time.
That's all right. This is the worst tour of my life.
Really?
In all 33 years, it was the most horrific experience I've ever had in the music business.
It gets crazier. It's the end of the tour, and our main man tanks out on us. Ralph said, fuck it, I ain't doing no more shows.
So yeah, man, thank y'all for tuning in to my story time type of videos that are different from the movie reviews. Since YouTube be tripping and retroactively banned some of my videos after they kind of get some traction, man, that's some hater shit, YouTube. And I do everything I can to sneak around the guidelines, but nothing is ever working. But I really appreciate y'all for rocking with me. In the meantime, definitely check out my books, poetry collections, and my romance novel. I greatly would appreciate if you guys supported me. As a black male author, we're typically last on a totem pole when it comes to being supported. So if you love good poetry and even better romance, I highly suggest y'all give my work a chance. The links will be in the description. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and also hype the video. Do everything y'all can to make sure this video reaches as many people as possible. I love y'all. Bye.